Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. I'm the GM Philosopher, and today we are talking about differentiating between antagonists and memorable villains as part of a deeper conversation on creating memorable villain arcs. Okay, now this is going to be a series I'm going to start to explore, and the reason I'm going to do this is because I created this sort of formula guide. It's called Creating Memorable Villain Arcs Beyond the Big Bad, a formula guide. And it's basically a guide committed to helping game masters create dynamic, evolving villains that are deeper than just antagonists. Now, you can grab this PDF for free. Link is in the description. You can download the whole thing. Now, that goes way more in depth than I'm about to go into today. Today, I'm only dealing with step one of that guide, which is differentiating between antagonists and memorable villains. So let's just dive right into it and we're going to start talking about it. Okay, now we're going to start by discussing the topic, understanding the role of villains in storytelling. In the rich tapestry of storytelling, villains play a pivotal role that extends beyond mere obstacles for the protagonist to overcome. Okay, they are the catalysts for conflict, the shadows that give depth to the light, and often the mirror reflecting the complexities of the human condition. To craft a compelling narrative, it is essential to understand the distinction between simple antagonists and memorable villains. And there is an important distinction between them. They both have their place when you're playing D&D or any TTRPG. So let's talk about differentiating those things real quick. Antagonists are characters who oppose the protagonist, serving primarily as hurdles in the narrative that the protagonists need to overcome. They are often one-dimensional with straightforward motives that are clear-cut and unambiguous. For example, the party is getting ready to try to escape the pirate ship, and two pirates draw their swords and challenge them. They're trying to recapture them. These are antagonists, very clear-cut, clearly defined roadblocks of conflict for the player characters. Their purpose is to create immediate tension and challenge, but they may lack the depth that engages the audience on a profound level, which is fine. Antagonists are not always supposed to create grand depth. An antagonist might be a bandit leader obstructing a journey, or a rival seeking the same treasure as the hero. These roles are important, but they are also limited to the progression of the plot. They're really just conflicts, and the plot is sort of the spotlight still. In contrast, memorable villains are imbued with depth, complexity, and personal growth. They are not just obstacles, but integral components of the narrative's fabric, influencing the story's direction and the player's emotional investment. They are like the antithesis of the heroes. In fact, if there is anything, anyone, any entity within the game who is as crucial to the story as the protagonists themselves, it would be the memorable villain antagonist. They're still an antagonist, but they're not just an antagonist. They are the focal point of the conflict. They are the source of it, and they're the most interesting aspect of it. These villains possess nuanced motivations, backstories that evoke empathy or understanding, and personalities that challenge the protagonists morally and intellectually. Their actions and decisions often reflect broader themes and philosophical questions, adding layers of meaning to the campaign. Now, let's talk about the philosophy of villainy. This will help us to understand better how to differentiate between memorable villains and what makes them special versus antagonists. Or I guess I should say mere antagonists. Once again, the memorable villain is an antagonist. They are the antagonist. All right. At the heart of a memorable villain lies the exploration of fundamental philosophical themes, okay? Morality, free will, the nature of good and evil, and the consequences of choices. Such villains force both characters and audiences to confront uncomfortable truths and ambiguities within the narrative universe. Consider the villain who believes their actions, no matter how destructive, are justified by a greater good, right? You could say that Thanos from the Marvel Universe in the movies, Thanos was going to wipe out half of all life, but he believed it was for a good purpose. One of the greatest, atrocities one could imagine, wiping out half of all sentient life, and yet he believed he was doing the right thing, right? Because he believed he was justified from his perspective by a cause. This perspective challenges the protagonists to examine their own morals and the societal structures they defend. It raises questions about relativism and whether ends can ever truly justify the means. By embodying these complex ideologies, the villain becomes a vessel for philosophical inquiry, elevating the narrative from a simple tale of good versus evil to a profound examination of ethical dilemmas. And this is what a good, deep, well crafted villain, a primary antagonist, a true, meaningful villain, this is what they will do. They will challenge the beliefs of the players. They won't just challenge the players, they will challenge their belief systems. So, how does this have an influence on the campaign depth and player investment? That's what we're going to talk about next. A well crafted villain can significantly enhance the campaign's depth, providing a richer and more engaging experience for players. When villains are multifaceted, they encourage players to delve deeper into the story, seeking to understand the motivations and histories that drive their adversaries. At first, this might look like they're investigating the enemy to find a way to defeat him, or they're just learning the backstory of the campaign. But this engagement fosters a more immersive experience as players become emotionally invested not only in defeating the villain, but also in the unfolding of the narrative and the resolution of its underlying conflicts. Okay. And this is why a deep set, meaningful villain will challenge the players. Moreover, memorable villains can drive character development among the protagonists. By presenting challenges that are not solely physical, but also moral and emotional, they compel players to make difficult choices, reflect on their values, and grow within the story. This dynamic interaction contributes to a more nuanced and satisfying narrative arc, and it causes players to do one of my most favorite things in the whole world: struggle with the moral questions, the ethical questions of what is going on, and perhaps even needing to make decisions in the game based on this inquiry. They need to figure out how wrong the villain actually is, especially if that villain teeters toward making a lot of sense, but they maybe disagree with the methods, or is it the level of violence they disagree with, or is it the nature of the violence they disagree with? Do they agree on the core concepts but disagree with the way it's being carried out? These are really important questions, and I think that this is the difference between villains and mere antagonists. Memorable villains in a story will challenge the players on this wide spectrum of different planes, whereas a one-dimensional antagonist really is kind of just one obstacle on the way to the final part of the story, or the next part of the story at least. So to conclude, I'll just say this. In essence, the role of the villain is not merely to oppose, but to enrich the narrative, challenge the protagonists, and provoke thought. By differentiating between simple antagonists and memorable villains, storytellers can craft deeper, more meaningful campaigns that resonate with players on multiple levels. And this is when you have the best games. And to be really honest, when you can foster a deep relationship between like a deep, memorable villain and the protagonists, the player characters, this will make your campaign extra good and extra memorable. It is true that through the lens of philosophy, villains become more than just characters. They become the embodiment of themes and questions that lie at the core of our human experience, which is why we carry them into TTRPGs with us, and which is why we find such delight, such emotionality, and such profound deepness in discussing them, thinking about them, and role playing through them. And that is going to conclude the beginning of my series on creating memorable villain arcs. I hope you have found this useful. And I just want to tell you that if you like this kind of printout, I send these types of things out in my emails all the time. You can sign up for my email list by going down into the description. There's a listing in my description that says grab my Ultimate Plot Randomizer ebook for free and join my email mailing list. And you can actually grab my free Ultimate Plot Randomizer. It's an ebook I created with 4 D100 tables, random roll plot arcs all day long. But you can grab that, and basically what will happen is you'll sign up. You'll get an email from me when you sign up, and it'll have that plot randomizer in it, and then you'll be on my email list, so that when I send out this kind of stuff, I make these kind of guides all the time for myself. So if you like getting those types of things and you don't want to miss one, sign up for my email list. You'll get all of those in email. When I create them, I create a bunch of free ones that I just like to use, that I like to give away. So anyway, there you have it. That is all I have to say on this one. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And hey, thank you so much for coming back to another episode of GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm here every day, create videos about the best game in the world, D&D. So I will see you awesome people on the next one.